The Chinook helicopter's rotors beat the air like thunder as it descended toward forward operating base Raptor. Specialist Riley Chen gripped her rifle tighter, watching the barren Afghan landscape give way to dusty concrete barriers and camouflage netting. At 17 years old, she dreamed of this moment for 2 years, ever since the day two officers arrived at her door to tell her that her brother David wouldn't be coming home. The helicopter touched down hard, and Riley grabbed her duffel bag, stepping out into a wall of heat that hit like a physical blow. September in Afghanistan felt like standing inside an oven. Dust swirled everywhere, coating her uniform before she'd taken 3 steps. Formation, new arrivals. A sergeant's voice cut through the noise. Riley jogged toward the assembled soldiers, her small frame making her gear seem oversized. She stood barely 5'3", with a round face that made her look 15 at best. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and despite her best efforts to appear hardened, her wide eyes gave away her nervousness. Major Derek Hawkins stood at the front of the formation, a tall man with 20 years of service etched into his weathered face. He was reviewing the new arrivals with the disinterested efficiency of someone who'd seen 1,000 replacements come and go. His eyes swept past Riley, then snapped back. He blinked, then he laughed, a sharp, mocking bark that made everyone turn. "Sergeant who authorized Bring Your Daughter to Work Day," Hawkins called out. The formation rippled with chuckles. Someone's kid got lost on base. Riley's jaw clenched so hard her teeth hurt. "Specialist Riley Chen, reporting for duty, sir," she said, her voice steady despite the heat crawling up her neck. The laughter died. Hawkins' smile vanished, replaced by disbelief. He walked over, looking her up and down like she was a defective piece of equipment. "You're serious? How old are you, Specialist?" 17, sir. Enlisted with parental consent." 17. Hawkins shook his head slowly. "This is a combat zone, not summer camp. Who the hell thought this was a good idea?" He turned to Lieutenant Sarah Vance, the 2nd platoon leader. "Vance, you're stuck with her. Try to keep the child alive until we can send her home." "Yes, sir," Vance replied crisply, though her expression remained neutral. "Dismissed. Chen, welcome to Afghanistan. Try not to get killed before you're old enough to vote." The formation broke apart, soldiers returning to their duties. Riley stood frozen, humiliation burning through her chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In her imagination, she'd arrive, prove herself quickly, become the soldier David never got to be. Instead, she was a joke before she'd even fired a shot. Lieutenant Vance approached, her expression sympathetic but firm. She was 32, with sharp green eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Come on, Chen, I'll show you to the barracks." They walked in silence past rows of concrete barriers, shipping containers converted into living quarters, and soldiers who stared at Riley with open curiosity. Word traveled fast on a small fob. "The major's not a bad officer," Vance said quietly, "but he lost 3 soldiers last month in an ambush. Young ones, he's protective." "I didn't come here to be protected, ma'am," Riley said. "I came here to fight." Vance stopped studying her. "Why? You could have waited until you were 18, gone to college, done anything else. Why rush into this?" Riley's hand unconsciously touched the dog tags under her shirt, David's tags, worn alongside her own. "My brother, Corporal David Chen. He was killed 2 years ago. IED outside Kandahar. He was supposed to come home, go to college, do all those things you mentioned." Her voice dropped. "Someone needs to finish what he started." Vance's expression softened. "That's a heavy reason, Chen, and I respect it. But listen carefully. You don't prove yourself by dying. You prove yourself by keeping your head down, learning from veterans, and staying alive long enough to actually help. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good, now get settled. Tomorrow you'll start pulling duty rotations with everyone else. And Chen," Vance's eyes hardened, "out here age doesn't matter, only competence. Show them what you can do, not what they expect you to be." That night, Riley sat on her bunk in the cramped barracks, surrounded by the snores of sleeping soldiers. She methodically cleaned her M4 rifle, each movement precise and practiced. The weapon was the one thing she trusted completely. In training, she'd outshot everyone in her class. Marksmanship came naturally to her: patience, breath control, reading wind and distance like a language only she understood. But marksmanship scores on a range meant nothing here. Major Hawkins had made that clear. She pulled out a worn photograph from her breast pocket. David in his uniform, grinning at the camera, looking invincible. He'd been 20 when he died, barely older than she was now. "I'm here, David," she whispered. "I'm going to make them see what you saw in me." Outside, the distant thump of mortars echoed across the valley. The war didn't care how old she was. Tomorrow, she'd start proving she belonged. 2 weeks crawled by like months. Riley pulled every miserable assignment the platoon had to offer, filling sandbags under the merciless sun until her hands bled, burning human waste in diesel-soaked barrels that made her gag, standing guard duty at the latrines while soldiers made jokes about the bathroom attendant. She endured it all in silence, her jaw set, her eyes forward. The other soldiers watched her with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Some tried to be friendly, offering advice on staying cool in the heat or sharing care packages from home. Others ignored her completely, as if acknowledging her existence would somehow make them complicit in what they saw as a tragedy waiting to happen. Major Hawkins made sure she understood her place. Every time he passed, there was a comment. "Still here, Chen, thought you'd have called Mommy by now." Or, "Make sure the kid gets extra water. Don't want her passing out on us." Riley took it all. She had no choice. But at night, she cleaned her weapons with almost religious devotion and studied topographical maps of the surrounding valleys until her eyes burned. She memorized elevation changes, line-of-sight angles, potential ambush points. If they ever gave her a chance, she'd be ready. That chance came on a Wednesday morning. "Second platoon, gear up, patrol in 30. Sergeant First Class Marcus Torres bellowed across the compound. Riley's heart jumped. Finally. She was dressed and ready in 15 minutes, checking her equipment 3 times. Magazine pouches loaded, water bladders full, first aid kit accessible, radio check complete. The briefing was short. Intelligence reported possible weapons caches in the mountain village of Zarak, 15 miles northeast. They'd patrol in, question locals, search suspected compounds, and return by nightfall. Routine. Standard. Safe. Except Major Hawkins announced he'd be joining them. "Need to see what's happening on the ground," he explained to Lieutenant Vance. Though everyone knew battalion executive officers rarely went on standard patrols. Riley suspected he wanted to supervise the kid personally. The convoy rolled out at 700, 3 Humvees loaded with 12 soldiers. Riley was assigned to the last vehicle, rear security position. The least important spot, the one they gave to inexperienced soldiers who might accidentally shoot their own people. She said nothing, just climbed in and scanned her sector. The road to Zarak wound through a narrow valley, mountains rising like broken teeth on either side. The terrain was beautiful in a harsh way, all browns and grays, with occasional patches of stubborn green where water collected. Riley studied the ridgelines, her training kicking in automatically. Plenty of elevated positions. Limited cover on the valley floor. Choke points everywhere. Her skin prickled. "Something wrong, Chen?" Corporal Danny Martinez asked from the driver's seat. He was one of the friendly ones, a stocky 23-year-old from Texas. "Just this valley, it's a perfect ambush site." Martinez shrugged. "They all are, try not to think about it." But Riley couldn't stop thinking about it. The mountains felt like they were watching, waiting. In the lead vehicle, Major Hawkins chatted with Lieutenant Vance, completely relaxed. He'd done hundreds of these patrols. After a while, they all blended together. The convoy entered the narrowest part of the valley, walls of rock rising 200 feet on either side. Riley's grip tightened on her rifle. Then the world exploded. Boom! An RPG screamed out of nowhere, slamming into the lead Humvee's engine block. The explosion was deafening, a mushroom of orange flame and black smoke. The vehicle swerved violently, metal shrieking. For a split second, everything froze, that weird suspension of time where the brain hasn't quite processed what's happening. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from the Ridgelines, AK-47s on full auto, the distinctive crack 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 echoing off the valley walls. Bullets sparked off armor, shattered windows, kicked up geysers of dirt. Riley heard screaming, someone yelling contact left, and another voice, man DOWN, man down. Out, everybody out, Sergeant Torres roared. Riley threw open her door and rolled out, muscle memory from training taking over. She hit the dirt hard, scrambled behind the Humvee's engine block, the only real cover. Her heart hammered, but her hands were steady as she brought her rifle up, flicking the selector to semi-auto. Chaos surrounded her, soldiers diving for cover, returning fire blindly at muzzle flashes in the rocks. The lead Humvee was burning, black smoke pouring into the sky. She saw two soldiers dragging a third, blood everywhere, his leg twisted wrong. Through the smoke, Riley caught a glimpse of Major Hawkins, pressed against a boulder, his face pale. He was shouting into his radio, calling for air support, for QRF, for anyone. Riley forced herself to breathe, to think. She scanned the ridgeline systematically, counting muzzle flashes. 8, no, 10 positions, maybe more. They were surrounded, caught in a kill zone exactly like the one she'd worried about. And they were dying. Corporal Jenkins from 1st Squad took a round to the shoulder, spinning and dropping. The platoon medic, Specialist Hayes, sprinted toward him and immediately caught shrapnel from an RPG that detonated against a rock. Hayes went down screaming, clutching his leg. "We need to move," Lieutenant Vance yelled, but move where? They were boxed in. Riley's eyes swept the mountains again, looking for something, anything. The enemy fire was too coordinated, too precise. Someone was directing this. Then she saw it. High up the mountain, maybe 1,200 meters away, a cave entrance, and in the shadows, barely visible, a figure. He wasn't shooting. He was pointing, directing the other fighters with hand signals. The commander, the one running this ambush. Riley's breath caught. That was the target. Take him out and the attack would fall apart. But 1,200 meters, uphill, in combat conditions. It was impossible. The ambush had been going for 3 minutes, but it felt like hours. Every second stretched like taffy as bullets cracked through the air and men screamed. Riley watched Corporal Martinez lean out to return fire and immediately jerk back, a round punching through his helmet, miraculously only grazing him, but leaving a bleeding furrow across his scalp. They were losing badly. Air support inbound, 20 MIKES. Someone yelled, 20 minutes. They didn't have 20 seconds. Lieutenant Vance popped up from behind cover, trying to coordinate a counterattack. A burst of AK fire stitched across the rocks near her head, and she ducked, but not fast enough. Riley saw the spray of blood as shrapnel from the splintered rock caught Vance's shoulder, spinning her around. Lieutenant down. The platoon was paralyzed, leaderless. Major Hawkins was still screaming into his radio, demanding immediate evac, his voice cracking with panic. This wasn't the confident officer who'd mocked her 2 weeks ago. This was a man watching his soldiers die. Riley's eyes snapped back to the cave entrance. The figure was still there, calmly directing fire. He pointed left, and immediately 3 insurgents shifted their fire to suppress 1st Squad. He pointed right, and an RPG team adjusted position to target the burning Humvee where wounded were taking cover. Everything flowed from him. Her hands moved before her conscious mind caught up. She unslung her M24 sniper rifle, the weapon she'd been carrying unofficially, cleaned obsessively, zeroed and re-zeroed on the range until the armorer told her to stop wasting ammunition. Regulations said she shouldn't have it. She was infantry, not a designated marksman. But her brother David had taught her to shoot when she was 12, and she'd never stopped. The rifle felt like an extension of her body. "Chen, what are you doing?" Martinez yelled, blood streaming down his face. She didn't answer. She was already running calculations. Distance, 1,247 meters by her estimation. Elevation gain, approximately 400 feet. Wind, left to right, maybe 8 miles per hour, gusting to 12. Temperature, 95 degrees, air thin at this altitude. Humidity, almost zero. The M24's 7.62 round would drop significantly over that distance. She'd need to aim nearly 6 feet high. The wind would push it right, compensate left, and the target was partially concealed in shadow. It was beyond difficult. It was practically impossible. "Chen," Major Hawkins had noticed her. "Get your head down, return fire on the ridgeline." She ignored him, deployed the bipod, pressed her cheek against the stock, found her natural point of aim. Through the scope, the cave entrance jumped into focus. The figure was clearer now, older man, traditional Pakal hat, gesturing with authority. And next to him, stacked against the cave wall, she saw them, RPG rounds, at least a dozen, maybe more. Her brain made the connection instantly. She didn't need to hit the man. She needed to hit the ammunition. "Specialist Chen, that is an order. Stand down." Riley took a breath, let it out slowly. Her heart rate dropped. Everything around her, the gunfire, the screaming, Hawkins yelling, faded to white noise. There was only the scope, the target, and the space between. She made her final adjustment, accounted for everything her brother had taught her, everything the army had drilled into her, and the instinct that lived in her bones. Another breath, halfway out, hold. The trigger broke clean. Crack! The rifle bucked against her shoulder. Through the scope, she tracked the bullet's flight, a full second and a half as it arced through the mountain air, fighting gravity and wind. The world held its breath. Then impact. The 7.62 round struck the stacked RPG rounds dead center. For a microsecond, nothing happened. Then the first RPG warhead detonated, which triggered the second, then the third, then all of them at once. Boom, 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 boom. The cave entrance erupted in a massive fireball that mushroomed into the sky. The explosion was so violent it shook the ground beneath Riley's chest. Secondary detonations rippled through the mountain as ammunition and explosives cooked off in a chain reaction. The entire cave system collapsed inward, tons of rock cascading down the mountainside in a thunderous avalanche. Through her scope, Riley saw bodies, insurgents who'd been inside the cave or near the entrance, launched into the air like ragdolls. Others were buried instantly under falling rock. The coordinated enemy fire stuttered, stopped. Confused voices shouted in Pashto across the ridgelines. Without their commander, without coordination, the ambush fell apart like a house of cards. "Return fire, hit them now," Sergeant Torres roared, sensing the shift. Second platoon unleashed everything they had. Disorganized insurgents broke and ran, and now they were the ones caught in the open. The battle turned in 30 seconds. 5 minutes later, it was over. Silence fell across the valley, broken only by the moans of wounded and the crackle of flames. Riley slowly lifted her head from the scope. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing through her system. She'd done it. One shot. One impossible shot. Major Hawkins stood 20 feet away, staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Lieutenant Vance, clutching her bleeding shoulder, managed a weak smile. "Nice shot, Chen." Martinez stared at the smoking crater where the cave had been. "Holy, what the hell just happened?" Sergeant Torres was already on the radio. "Overlord, this is Phantom 2-6. Ambush broken. We need medevac for 4 wounded. and get a drone overhead. Chen just dropped a mountain on somebody important. Riley carefully safed her rifle, her whole body trembling. She just killed people, maybe dozens of them. The realization hit like a physical blow. But second platoon was alive. That was what mattered. She looked at Major Hawkins, waiting for the reprimand, the fury at disobeying his direct order. Instead, he walked over slowly, his face unreadable. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He extended his hand. "I was wrong about you, Specialist Chen." The medevac helicopters arrived 12 minutes later, rotors thundering as they descended into the valley. Riley helped load the wounded, Lieutenant Vance with her shrapnel-torn shoulder, Corporal Jenkins with a through-and-through bullet wound, Specialist Hayes with his shattered leg, and Martinez with his head wound that looked worse than it was. She held pressure on Jenkins' shoulder as they loaded him onto the stretcher, her hands slick with his blood. He grabbed her wrist weakly. "You saved us, kid. You saved all of us." She couldn't find words to respond. The convoy limped back to Fob Raptor with the damaged Humvees, arriving just before sunset. Word had already spread. Soldiers lined the route, watching silently as second platoon rolled through the gates. Riley felt their eyes on her like physical weight. The next 48 hours blurred together. Intelligence officers interviewed her 3 times, making her walk through every detail of the shot. A Predator drone had captured the entire ambush on video. They played it back for her in grainy black and white. She watched herself take the shot, watched the explosion, watched enemy fighters scatter like ants. "We've confirmed 25 EKIA, the intelligence officer said, using the military acronym for enemy killed in action, including a high-value target, Commander Aziz Ghulam. He's been coordinating attacks in this province for 3 years. You just took out his entire cell." 25 people. Riley felt sick. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing the explosion, bodies tumbling through the air. She told herself they were trying to kill her friends, that she'd had no choice, but they were still dead by her hand. At 200 she gave up on sleep and walked to the aid station to check on the wounded. The medics let her sit with them. Lieutenant Vance was awake, her shoulder heavily bandaged. "Can't sleep either?" Vance asked. Riley shook her head. "I keep thinking about all those people. 25 bad guys who were actively trying to kill us," Vance said firmly. "You did your job, Chen, better than anyone could have expected." "Does it get easier, the killing?" Vance was quiet for a long moment. "No, and be glad it doesn't. The day it becomes easy is the day you've lost something important." She shifted, wincing. "You know what I keep thinking about? Those 4 guys you saved. Jenkins, Hayes, Martinez, and me. We're alive because of you. That's what matters." On the 3rd day, Riley was summoned to the battalion headquarters. She reported in full uniform, expecting. She didn't know what. Court-martial for disobeying orders. Reprimand for carrying unauthorized equipment. Instead, she found herself in a conference room with Major Hawkins, Colonel James Rivera, the battalion commander, and a video conference linked to some general whose stars she couldn't count. Major Hawkins stood when she entered. That alone was shocking. Officers didn't stand for enlisted soldiers. "Specialist Chen, reporting as ordered, sir." "At ease," Colonel Rivera said. He was a stocky man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. "We've reviewed the incident at Zarek Valley. We've also reviewed your actions." "Here it comes," Riley thought. Major Hawkins stepped forward. "Specialist Chen, 3 days ago I gave you a direct order to stand down. You disobeyed that order." He paused, and Riley's stomach dropped. That disobedience saved 11 lives and eliminated a terrorist cell that's killed over 40 coalition soldiers in the past year. He came to attention. "I owe you an apology, not just for the valley for the past 2 weeks, for the past 2 years of my career." His voice was tight. "I let my prejudice, my fear, my own failures cloud my judgment. I saw your age and decided you were a liability before you'd fired a single shot. That prejudice nearly cost me my soldiers." Riley stared speechless. "I was wrong, completely, utterly wrong, and I apologize publicly and formally." He extended his hand again. "You're one hell of a soldier, Specialist Chen. Age be damned." She shook his hand, still unable to process what was happening. Colonel Rivera spoke up. "We're recommending you for the Army Commendation Medal with Valor device. Additionally, we're fast-tracking your promotion to Specialist E5. He smiled slightly. "Though at your age, you'll be the youngest E5 in theater." The general on the screen leaned forward. "Specialist Chen, your actions demonstrate the kind of initiative and tactical thinking we need. How would you feel about joining a special task force we're putting together?" Riley's mind reeled. "Special operations, her. Sir, I'm honored, but I'm just—" "Just what? Just 17?" The general's eyes twinkled. "Age is just a number. Competence is what matters. Think about it." The meeting ended and Riley walked out in a daze. Outside, she found a crowd, dozens of soldiers from 2nd Platoon and beyond, waiting. When they saw her, someone started clapping, then another, then everyone. The applause washed over her like a wave. Sergeant Torres pushed through the crowd. "The platoon wants to buy you dinner, Chen. Real food, not DFAC garbage. We've got care packages, steaks, the works." That night, sitting around makeshift grills with soldiers who 3 days ago had barely acknowledged her existence, Riley felt something shift. Martinez raised a can of near beer. "To Chen, the baddest 17-year-old on the planet." "To Chen," the platoon echoed. But as Riley smiled and accepted their praise, she caught sight of the aid station across the compound. Hayes was in there, facing surgery to save his leg. Jenkins would carry that scar forever. 4 soldiers who'd come home different because of a valley and a choice. She'd earned their respect, but the weight of what that respect cost, 25 lives ended, friends wounded, innocence shattered, settled onto her shoulders like armor. She was a soldier now, for real, and there was no going back. The invitation arrived 5 days later in the form of a Black Hawk helicopter and a Special Forces captain who introduced himself simply as Daniels. He wore no unit patch, no rank insignia beyond the bars on his collar, and sunglasses that hid his eyes even indoors. "You've got 2 hours to pack, Chen. We're wheels up at 1400. Riley's hands trembled as she stuffed her duffel. This was happening, actually happening. Sergeant Torres helped her, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "Listen, kid, these guys operate on a different level. Don't try to be a hero. Just do your job and learn everything you can." The flight took them to a classified location, coordinates redacted, somewhere in eastern Afghanistan. The compound was smaller than FOB Raptor but infinitely more sophisticated. High-tech surveillance equipment, advanced weaponry, and soldiers who moved with the quiet efficiency of apex predators. Task Force Sabre. Master Sergeant Victor Cruz met her on the landing pad. He was compact and powerful, maybe 45, with a weathered face and eyes that assessed her in 3 seconds flat. His handshake was firm. "Chen, heard about Zarek Valley, impressive shooting." "Thank you, Sergeant. Here's the deal, I don't care about your age, your gender, or your feelings. I care about performance. You screw up, people die. You perform, we all go home. Clear." "Crystal, Sergeant." "Good, drop your gear in Building 3, Bunk 12. Briefing at 1700. The barracks was half empty, only 8 bunks occupied out of 20. Riley recognized the caliber of soldier immediately. Delta Force, Green Berets, Rangers, all elite Tier 1 operators. And then there was her. She chose the bunk farthest from the door, trying to be invisible. A voice stopped her. "You're the kid who dropped 25 Hajis with 1 shot." Riley turned to find a man maybe 30 years old, built like a linebacker, with sergeant stripes and a Ranger tab. His tone wasn't friendly. "Staff Sergeant Mike Brennan. I'm the team's designated marksman. Specialist Chen. Yeah, I know who you are. Whole damn military knows. He stepped closer. Let me give you some advice, Specialist. That shot, that was luck, pure dumb luck, 1 in a million fluke. Don't come in here thinking you're some kind of sniper god because you got lucky once. Riley's jaw tightened. I'll let my performance speak for itself, Sergeant. You do that. Brennan walked away, leaving Riley's stomach churning with doubt. Was he right? Had it just been luck? The briefing room was packed with the most dangerous-looking soldiers Riley had ever seen. Master Sergeant Cruz stood at the front beside a map of Kandahar province covered in red circles and arrows. Gentlemen and lady, meet our target. Code name, Chemist. He clicked a remote and a grainy photograph appeared. A thin man, maybe 50, with a gray beard and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like a professor, not a terrorist. Abdul Wahab Haqqani, former chemical engineer turned bomb maker for the Taliban. He's personally responsible for at least 40 coalition deaths, probably closer to 100. His IEDs are sophisticated, remote detonation, shaped charges, GPS-triggered devices. He's making the roadside bombs smarter, deadlier. Cruz clicked through photographs of destroyed vehicles, flag-draped coffins, and grieving families. Riley felt her chest tighten. This man was making the same bombs that killed David. Chemist moves constantly, never stays in one place more than 2 nights. We've been hunting him for 8 months. Every time we get close, he's gone. Cruz's expression hardened. But we've got new intelligence. He's using a network of safe houses in Kandahar City. We're going to find them, stake them out, and nail this bastard. A green beret raised his hand. What's the row? Rules of engagement. Capture if possible. Kill if necessary. Civilian casualties are unacceptable. Chemist hides among the population deliberately. The team spent the next 3 hours reviewing intelligence, planning surveillance rotations, and assigning roles. Riley listened intently, absorbing everything. When Cruz assigned positions, he looked directly at her. Chen, you're on intelligence analysis with Lieutenant Morrison. I want fresh eyes on Chemist's movement patterns, something we've missed. Not field operations, desk work, safe. Riley tried not to feel disappointed, but Brennan's smirk from across the room made it obvious. They didn't trust her in the field yet. That night, Riley spread maps and intelligence reports across her bunk. Chemist had used 17 different safe houses in 8 months. She traced his movements with colored markers, looking for patterns. Master Sergeant Cruz found her at 200, still working. You should sleep, Chen. Just trying to find something, Sergeant. He sat down, studying her work. Can I ask you something personal? Why'd you enlist so young? And don't give me the patriotic speech. Riley hesitated, then pulled out David's dog tags from under her shirt. My brother, Corporal David Chen, KIA 2 years ago, IED outside Kandahar. Her voice dropped. The same kind of IED that Chemist builds. Cruz's expression shifted, recognition, understanding, and something that looked like pain. I had a daughter, Emily, 14 years old. Drunk driver killed her while I was deployed in Iraq. He stared at the floor. I wasn't there to protect her, came home to a flag and a folded uniform. I'm sorry, Sergeant. Me too, he stood, gesturing to her maps. Revenge is a dangerous motivation, Chen. It eats you alive if you let it. You want my advice. Don't hunt Chemist for your brother. Hunt him for the soldiers who are still alive, who still have a chance to go home. He left and Riley sat in silence, David's tags cold against her skin. Over the next 2 weeks, Task Force Sabre conducted endless surveillance. Riley analyzed patterns obsessively, barely sleeping. The team ran training exercises, urban combat, close quarters battle, advanced marksmanship. Brennan continued to undermine her at every opportunity, questioning her analysis, making snide comments about lucky shots. But Riley kept working, and slowly, impossibly, she began to see something in Chemist's movements. a pattern so subtle it was almost invisible. Every safe house was within 500 meters of a cell phone repair shop. She triple-checked, quadruple-checked. It held true for 16 of 17 locations. The 17th had a repair shop 520 meters away, close enough. Her hands shook as she marked the repair shops on a master map. If this pattern held, she could predict his next location. At the next briefing, she raised her hand. "Sergeant Cruz, I think I found something." The room fell silent. Brennan rolled his eyes. Riley walked to the map, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "Chemist uses cell phones for remote detonation. He needs constant access to replacement parts, burner phones, SIM cards. So he stays near repair shops. They're everywhere in Kandahar, legitimate businesses that don't attract attention." She pointed to 3 circled areas. "Based on his movement pattern and the repair shop locations, I believe these are his next 3 most likely safe houses. High confidence on this one." She tapped a compound in the southeastern district. Cruz leaned forward, studying the map. Lieutenant Morrison, the intelligence officer, started cross-referencing databases. "She's right," Morrison said slowly. "Every single location matches. How did we miss this?" "Because we were looking for the wrong pattern," Cruz said. He looked at Riley with something approaching respect. "Outstanding work, Chen." Brennan's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Cruz straightened. "We hit all 3 locations tomorrow night. Simultaneous raids, Chen." Riley held her breath. "You're going into the field. Overwatch position with Brennan." Mission briefing lasted 3 hours. Riley absorbed every detail: ingress routes, exfil plans, radio frequencies, recognition signals. Task Force Sabre would split into 3 teams, hitting all 3 suspected safe houses simultaneously at 200. If Chemist was at any location, they'd have him cornered. Master Sergeant Cruz assigned positions with surgical precision. Team 1 takes the southeastern compound. That's our primary target based on Chen's analysis. Team 2 hits the northern location. Team 3 covers the western safe house. He paused, looking at Riley and Brennan. Overwatch will be Chen and Brennan on separate rooftops covering the primary target. You'll have eyes on all approaches, all exits. Brennan's face remained impassive, but Riley saw the muscle twitch in his jaw. Being paired with her, even separately, clearly irritated him. After the briefing, Riley checked her gear obsessively. M24 sniper rifle cleaned and zeroed, 12 magazines, night vision, range finder, radio with fresh batteries. She went through the checklist 4 times until Sergeant Tor's voice echoed in her head. "You'll burn out, kid." She forced herself to stop to breathe. Brennan found her in the armory at 1900, 3 hours before mission launch. He was checking his own rifle, a customized M110 with high-end optics that probably cost more than Riley's entire kit. "Listen, Chen." His tone was clipped. "In the field, I'm the senior marksman. You follow my lead. You don't take shots without my clearance. You don't make decisions. You observe and report. Understood?" Riley's temper flared. "With respect, Sergeant, Cruz assigned us independent Overwatch positions. That means independent fields of fire. It means I'm in charge of making sure the FNG doesn't screw up and get people killed." He stepped closer. "That shot at Zarak Valley, I've looked at the data. 1,247 meters, significant elevation change, wind conditions. The math doesn't work. You got lucky. Statistically, impossibly lucky." "The math worked fine for me." "Yeah, well, mathematics and battlefield reality are different things. Out here, hesitation kills, overconfidence kills, and 17-year-old kids with hero complexes definitely kill." His eyes were hard. "I've been doing this for 12 years. I've made shots in Fallujah, Ramadi, Helmand Province. I've earned my place here. You're a publicity stunt, a feel-good story for the folks back home." Riley's hands clenched into fists. "You're wrong." "Am I? Then prove it tonight. Don't get anyone killed trying to be special." He walked away, leaving Riley shaking with anger and something worse, doubt. Was he right? Had Zarek Valley been luck? She found Master Sergeant Cruz in the operations center, reviewing drone footage of the target area. He looked up as she approached. "Second thoughts, Chen." "No, Sergeant, Brennan said something that's in my head." Cruz gestured for her to sit. "Let me guess. He told you that shot was luck, that you don't belong here." Riley nodded. "Brennan's one of the best marksmen I've ever worked with," Cruz said carefully. "He's also deeply insecure. You know why?" He pulled up Brennan's service record. "In 12 years, he's never made a shot over 900 meters in combat. Training, sure, controlled conditions, absolutely, but combat is different." "I don't understand." "You made an impossible shot under impossible conditions on your first real contact. You did in 3 minutes what he's been trying to prove he could do for over a decade." Cruz closed the file. "That doesn't make him a bad soldier, but it does make him jealous. Don't let his baggage become yours." "What if he's right, though? What if I can't do it again?" Cruz leaned back. "You know what the difference is between confidence and arrogance. Confidence is trusting your training. Arrogance is thinking you can't fail. You've got the training, Chen, trust it, but also know your limits. If you don't have the shot, don't take it. That's not weakness, that's wisdom." At midnight, the team moved out in blacked-out vehicles. Kandahar City sprawled before them, a maze of compounds and narrow streets illuminated by scattered lights. Riley's stomach churned with nervous energy. Her rooftop position was a 3-story building 400 meters from the target compound. She climbed the external stairs in darkness, her rifle slung across her back, night vision painting the world in green. The roof was flat, with a low wall providing cover. She set up her position, testing sight lines. The target compound was clearly visible, a 2-story structure with high walls and a single gate. 3 potential exits, multiple windows, lots of places for someone to hide or escape. Across the street, 600 meters away, Brennan was setting up on his own rooftop. She could see his IR strobe through her night vision, a pulsing beacon identifying him as friendly. "Overwatch 1, radio check." Brennan's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Overwatch 2, loud and clear," Riley responded. "Remember, observe and report. Don't go cowboy on me." Riley didn't respond. She settled into her rifle, scanning the compound through her scope. At 1:45, the assault teams moved into position. Riley could see them on her thermal scope, ghostly white figures stacking up near the compound walls, ready to breach. Cruz's voice came through the radio. "All elements stand by. Overwatch any movement." Riley scanned systematically. "Overwatch 2 negative. Compound appears quiet. No visible weight." She focused on a 2nd-story window. "Movement, 2nd floor, northwest window. Single individual. Can't confirm identity." "Copy, stand by for breach." The seconds crawled. Riley's finger rested alongside the trigger guard, not on the trigger itself. Patience, discipline. At exactly 200, the assault began. Flashbangs detonated with brilliant white light. The gate exploded inward. Assault teams poured through, voices shouting clear and moving, as they flowed through the compound like water. Then everything went wrong. "Contact, we've got a runner southeast corner." Riley swung her rifle, searching. There, a figure sprinting from the compound's back exit, moving fast toward a vehicle parked in an alley. Through her scope she glimpsed wire-rimmed glasses. Chemist. "I've got him," Brennan's voice, taking the shot. Crack, Brennan's rifle barked. The round hit the vehicle's hood, missing Chemist by inches. Chemist dove behind the car. More figures appeared, bodyguards, 4 of them, returning fire toward the compound. The assault team was pinned. Riley tracked Chemist through her scope. He was moving again, using vehicles for cover, heading toward a motorcycle. "He's escaping," Riley reported. "Southeast, moving to the bike." I don't have the angle, Brennan sounded frustrated. But Riley did. A narrow gap between two buildings, maybe 3 seconds before Chemist reached the motorcycle and disappeared into Kandahar's maze of streets. Her crosshairs found him. Range 340 meters, wind negligible, moving target left to right maybe 10 miles per hour. She had the shot. Overwatch 2, do not engage, Brennan ordered. Too many civilians in the area, stand down. Riley's finger moved to the trigger. Chemist was reaching for the motorcycle. In 5 seconds he'd be gone, and more soldiers would die from his bombs. David's face flashed through her mind. Then Hayes in the aid station. Jenkins bleeding, all of them. But she also saw the compound, saw civilians who might be in those nearby buildings, saw the risk. Her training screamed one thing. Her desire for revenge screamed another. The crosshairs steady on Chemist's center mass. 3 seconds. 2. 1. Riley's finger relaxed off the trigger. Chemist vanished into the night on the motorcycle, the engine's whine fading into the city's chaos. She'd had the shot. But Brennan was right. Civilians everywhere, uncertain identification in darkness, too many variables. Target escaped, she reported, her voice hollow. I didn't have a clean shot. Brennan's response was immediate. Good call, Chen. That's the difference between training and experience. But it didn't feel good. It felt like failure. The assault team searched the compound and found a treasure trove. Bomb-making materials, detonators, detailed maps of coalition patrol routes, and most critically, a cell phone with recent communications. Intelligence officers descended like vultures, pulling data from every device. By sunrise, they had something concrete. Chemist is meeting with financial backers today, Lieutenant Morrison announced at the emergency briefing. A cafe in the central marketplace. Noon. We've got 6 hours. Master Sergeant Cruz studied the satellite imagery. Riley looked over his shoulder and her stomach dropped. The marketplace was massive, hundreds of vendors, thousands of civilians. Women, children, elderly men selling fruit and fabric. The cafe sat in the heart of it all. This is a nightmare scenario, Cruz said. Rules of engagement are weapons tight. Positive ID required before any shots. Capture is the only acceptable outcome unless he poses an immediate threat. The plan came together quickly. Ground team would pose as shoppers, close in when Chemist arrived. Riley and Brennan would provide overwatch from separate positions, her on a minaret, him on a hotel rooftop. Remember, Cruz emphasized, looking directly at Riley and Brennan, civilian casualties are absolutely unacceptable. If you don't have a clean shot, you don't shoot. Period. At 1100, Riley climbed the narrow spiral stairs of the minaret, her rifle wrapped in cloth to avoid attention. The view from the top was breathtaking and terrifying. The marketplace sprawled below like an anthill, thousands of people moving between stalls of spices, carpets, electronics, and food. She set up behind the minaret's decorative screen, invisible from below. Through her scope, she found the cafe, outdoor seating, bright umbrellas, civilians everywhere. Overwatch positions, radio check, Cruz's voice crackled. Overwatch 1 set, Brennan reported. Overwatch 2 set, Riley confirmed. At 11:47, Chemist arrived. Riley recognized the wire-rimmed glasses, the thin frame. He wore traditional clothing, blending perfectly with the crowd. 4 bodyguards surrounded him, hands near concealed weapons. Positive ID on Chemist, Riley reported. 4 security, high alert. The ground team began their approach, Cruz and 2 operators dressed as locals, carrying shopping bags that concealed weapons. They moved with practiced casualness, closing the distance. Chemist sat at an outdoor table. 2 men in expensive suits joined him, the financiers. They began talking, reviewing documents. Cruz was 30 meters away, 20:10. Then Riley saw it. A truck entering the marketplace from the western entrance. large, riding low on its suspension, heavy. The driver's face was wrong, too calm, too focused. His eyes weren't looking at the road. They were locked on the American checkpoint visible at the marketplace's edge. Her training screamed the answer, VBIED. Vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, a truck bomb. VBIED, she shouted into her radio. Western entrance, white truck heading toward the checkpoint. Say again. Cruz's voice was confused, distracted by his approach to Chemist. Riley watched in horror as the truck accelerated, weaving through the crowded market. Civilians scattered. The driver's destination was clear, the checkpoint where 30 American soldiers stood guard. She tried the radio again. Static, jammed. Chemist had planned for this. The market meeting was bait. The real attack was the truck bomb aimed at the checkpoint. Riley's scope found the driver. Range, 280 meters. Moving target accelerating. The truck was armored, shooting the engine block wouldn't stop it. Only the driver. But between her and the target, hundreds of civilians. The bullet would have to thread between people, over market stalls, through narrow gaps. And Chemist was right there, 15 meters from Cruz. She could take the shot, end the man who'd killed her brother with his bombs. The mission objective. Through her scope, she saw both scenarios. Left, the truck driver, a killing shot that would save the checkpoint. Right, Chemist, the man they'd been hunting for months, surrounded by civilians but reachable. She couldn't do both. One shot, one choice. Her radio crackled, Brennan's voice finally breaking through the jamming. Chen, I've got Chemist in my sights. Take the truck, take the truck. The truck was 50 meters from the checkpoint. Soldiers there had seen it, were scrambling for cover, but there wasn't time. Riley's crosshairs found the driver's head through the windshield. Laminated safety glass would deflect the round slightly. She compensated. The truck bounced over a curb, her aim point shifted. 25 meters from the checkpoint. Her brother's face flashed through her mind. David smiling in his uniform. Then Hayes in the aid station. Jenkins bleeding in the valley. Martinez with blood streaming down his face. All of them victims of bombs. She could end the bomb maker, right now. One shot justice for David. But 30 soldiers would die. 15 meters. Riley made her choice. She squeezed the trigger. Crack. The 7.62 round punched through the windshield, deflected slightly by the laminated glass, but her compensation was perfect. The driver's head snapped back. The truck swerved violently left, away from the checkpoint. It crashed into a concrete barrier and detonated. BOOM. The explosion was apocalyptic. A mushroom cloud of fire and smoke erupted into the sky. The shockwave shattered windows across the marketplace. Riley felt it even in the minaret, 300 meters away. Market stalls near the blast were obliterated. Civilians screamed, running in all directions. Through the chaos and smoke, Riley swung her scope back to the cafe. Empty, Chemist and his bodyguards were gone, vanished in the confusion. Target lost, Cruz's frustrated voice. Chemist escaped in the blast confusion. All teams fall back. Riley's hands shook. She'd saved the checkpoint. Initial reports came through her radio. 12 soldiers wounded from the peripheral blast but alive. No fatalities. Without her shot, all 30 would be dead. But Chemist was gone, again. She'd chosen soldiers over the mission objective, over revenge for David, over everything she'd been working toward. Overwatch 2, good shot, Cruz said quietly. You saved lives. Brennan's voice came next, tight with barely controlled anger. You let him go, Chen. You had your fame shot and you blew it for the mission. Riley descended the minaret in silence, her legs trembling. Below, civilians were being treated for injuries, burns, shrapnel wounds, broken bones from the stampede. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, cried for her mother. The collateral damage from Riley's choice to stop the truck. Master Sergeant Cruz found her at the rally point. You made the right call. Did I? Chemist is still out there. He'll build more bombs, kill more people. Maybe, but 30 soldiers went home tonight because of you. That checkpoint, he pulled out his phone, showed her thermal footage from a drone. Soldiers scrambling for cover, then the truck exploding against the barrier instead of in their midst. You gave them a chance. That's all we can ever do. Riley watched the footage loop. The truck, the explosion, the soldiers surviving. She'd made her choice. Soldiers over revenge, lives over the mission. The hardest decision she'd ever faced. And she knew Brennan would never forgive her for it. 3 weeks after the marketplace, Riley sat in a briefing room watching intelligence officers connect dots on a whiteboard. The cell phone data recovered from Chemist's safe house, combined with surveillance from the marketplace attack, had created a web of connections. Financiers, suppliers, safe houses. CIA officers used that intelligence to track Chemist to a compound near the Pakistani border. A joint task force captured him alive in a pre-dawn raid. No shots fired. No casualties. He was currently in a black site facility, providing information that was dismantling terrorist networks across the region. Your analysis made this possible, Chen, the intelligence officer said. The cell phone repair shop pattern, the marketplace identifications, it all led here. But Riley felt hollow. They'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. The award ceremony was scheduled for a sunny morning at Fob Raptor. Riley stood at attention in her dress uniform, freshly pressed, boots shined to mirrors. The courtyard was packed, soldiers from 2nd Platoon, Task Force Sabre, and dozens of others who'd heard the story. In the front row sat 12 soldiers from the checkpoint she'd saved. Some still bore bandages. Sergeant Ramirez, who'd been manning the gate when the truck approached, caught her eye and nodded with quiet respect. Colonel Rivera read the citation. For extraordinary heroism in combat operations. Specialist Chen identified an imminent threat to coalition forces, and under extreme pressure, engaged and neutralized a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, preventing catastrophic loss of life. Her actions reflect the highest traditions of military service. Major Hawkins stepped forward to pin the Bronze Star Medal with Valor device on her chest. His hands were steady, but his voice was soft. You proved me wrong twice, Chen, first in the valley, then in the marketplace. He paused. You chose right over easy. That's real leadership. Thank you for teaching an old soldier some humility. The medal felt heavy against her chest, heavier than she'd imagined. After the ceremony, Staff Sergeant Brennan approached. Riley braced for another confrontation, but his expression was different, softer, almost apologetic. I owe you an apology, Chen. His jaw worked, the words clearly difficult. I've been jealous, angry that a 17-year-old kid could do what I've been trying to prove I could do for 12 years. He looked at the checkpoint soldiers. But watching those guys today, seeing them alive because of your choice, I would have taken the shot at Chemist, would have let those soldiers die for the mission objective. You made the harder call, the right call. He extended his hand. You're twice the soldier I was at your age, hell, twice the soldier I am now. Riley shook his hand. You taught me something important, Sergeant. That one shot doesn't make you special. It's the choices between shots that define you. Her orders arrived that afternoon. She had options. Stay with Task Force Sabre, return to 2nd Platoon, or accept an appointment to West Point with full scholarship. Master Sergeant Cruz recommended the third option. You've got potential beyond pulling triggers, Chen. Go home, finish growing up, get educated, then come back and lead soldiers the right way. Riley thought about it for one night, then made her decision. She was going home, not because she was running away, but because she'd proven what she needed to prove. To Hawkins, to Brennan, to herself. The night before her flight, she visited the aid station one last time. Lieutenant Vance was there, cleared for duty with her arm in a sling. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains. "What will you do at West Point?" Vance asked. "Learn, grow, figure out who I am beyond the girl who made an impossible shot." Riley touched the bronze star on her uniform. "Come back as an officer who makes the hard choices for the right reasons. Your brother would be proud." Riley smiled. "Maybe, but this isn't his story anymore, it's mine." 2 days later, Riley stood at Arlington National Cemetery in her dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. The morning was crisp, autumn leaves falling like memories. She found David's headstone, white marble, perfectly aligned with thousands of others. She knelt, placing the bronze star medal at its base. "I didn't finish your tour, David," she whispered. "You were right, I found my own reason to serve." Her fingers traced his name carved in stone. "You wanted me to be safe, to have a normal life. But you also taught me to shoot, to be strong, to stand up for what matters. I'm doing that, just in my own way." She stood, rendering a crisp salute, a promise to the brother she'd lost and to the soldier she was becoming. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to find a young lieutenant, maybe 23, looking nervous. "Excuse me, are you Specialist Chen, the one from the Zarak Valley?" Riley nodded. "I ship to Afghanistan next month. First deployment. I'm scared, honestly." He looked embarrassed. "Any advice?" Riley thought about everything she'd learned. The impossible shot, the marketplace choice, Brennan's jealousy, Cruz's wisdom. The weight of 25 lives ended and 30 lives saved. "Stay humble," she said finally. "Trust your training, but know your limits. Remember that every choice has weight, every shot has consequences." She met his eyes. "And never let anyone, including yourself, tell you what you're capable of. You'll surprise yourself if you give yourself the chance." The lieutenant smiled, saluted, and walked away. Riley turned back to David's grave one last time. The bronze star gleamed in the morning sun, a symbol of sacrifice and choice. She'd carried his death into war and found her own life in the process. "Goodbye, David, I'll be back, but next time I'll be Captain Chen." She walked toward the cemetery gates, toward a future she'd earned through impossible shots and harder choices. West Point waited, then Ranger School, then a return to lead soldiers of her own, teaching them the lessons written in blood and stone across Afghanistan's valleys. The story of the girl who dropped 25 hostiles with a single shot would follow her, but it wouldn't define her. That was just the beginning, one moment in a life of service that she was only starting to write. As she passed through the gates, a text message arrived from Master Sergeant Cruz. "Academy starts in 3 weeks. Don't be late, kid. The Army needs officers like you. More importantly, soldiers need leaders like you. Make us proud." Riley smiled, typed back, "Roger that, Sergeant. See you on the other side." She pocketed her phone and stepped into the morning light, no longer the mocked 17-year-old or the girl seeking revenge. She was Specialist Riley Chen, soon to be Cadet Chen, a soldier who'd learned that true courage wasn't about impossible shots. It was about making the right choice when the wrong one would be easier. Her war wasn't over, it was just changing shape, and she was ready. The end.